Hey everyone, this is our first video. Thanks for giving it a watch. Of course, here with Adrian. We're going to be going into his background, but just to kind of announce what these videos are about, every single week or bi-weekly, depending on how time is, we're going to be going over things that are happening in the markets with the company, and of course, talking to Adrian about kind of the day-to-day and weekly operation. First things first, Adrian, how are you?
I'm great. I'm great, Jason. Thank you for having me.
Perfect, perfect. Well, like I said, let's do a little intro video here. I think that would be great, and really let people know who you are, some of your background, and we'll build the story off that. Do you want to maybe start with where you went to school and maybe your first couple jobs after school?
Great. Yeah. I'm actually from Toronto, Canada, fellow Canadian like yourself. I graduated from the University of Western Ontario. That's in London, Ontario. And right out of school, I actually got a job over here in the States. I got recruited as an analyst for a brokerage firm. Straight out of college, I came to the States, and since then, I've been working in finance ever since. I worked in the brokerage firm basically from 1999 till about 2009 when the mortgage crisis hit. When the mortgage crisis hit, I jumped on the other side of the business and I started building public companies. I've built many public companies. I've worn every single hat. I've been a founder, I've been an investor, I've been an employee, I've been a CEO. I've worn every hat there is.
Okay, interesting. Hey, recruited to the U.S., that big role. I mean, I know there's some people who obviously do get picked up, but that's awesome. You must have had quite the resume to get picked up by a U.S. brokerage. Do you want to maybe talk a little bit more? You say you founded companies or you put companies together. Do you want to maybe explain to people that don't really know what that entails?
Sure. Well, right now, as you know, on the OTC markets, there are certain criteria. For instance, if you want to list a company, you have to have a minimum of 35 shareholders, you have to have a certain market cap, you have to have certain criteria that FINRA and the SEC expects. So, for instance, as a founder of a company, I founded a company called DNA Precious Metals many years ago. They were traded on the OTC markets, and they've since moved to the Canadian markets. I was a founder in a company called Glucerna Health. That again was also traded on the OTC and was a company that I built from a network of shareholders in Canada. So what I would basically do is I would work with the attorneys, work with the accountants, go to 35 separate investors, get a certain amount of money from each investor, and we would put the company together. We would file a 15C211 with a brokerage firm, and when that 15C211 was approved through the regulatory bodies, then at that point, the company would get listed. And just to be clear, as a founder of DNA Precious Metals, that has nothing to do with my company, DNA Brands.
Yeah, we'll get to DNA brands in a sec. So cool. So you obviously know all the inner workings of how to get companies listed. So do you want to maybe walk through some of the companies that you did get listed, like you said, you've got precious metals. You want to walk through the process, you get them listed, and then what happened. So they're listed. Do you run the company like you said? You had different hats, and then
Yeah,
on to the next.
well, for instance, in that one company, DNA Precious Metals, that I did come in as a founder, I was one of the 35 shareholders. I went to 35 different people. As I said, I worked with the accountants and the attorneys. We collected checks. We worked with FINRA and the SEC going through the comment period. And after the comment period, we would file what's known as 15C211 with a brokerage firm. At that point, then the company, once it got approved, it would be publicly traded. Now, once it's publicly traded, that's only the beginning. That's the first point or first starting point of being public. Now, the second part is, I would accompany the company on certain roadshows, go deal with the investment bankers, go to New York, go to California, Florida, the hot spots where most of the investment bankers were. And that's when we would do a secondary offering and do a raise to help the company get to that next level or goal.
Yeah, cool. No, and makes sense. Obviously, hey, that's pretty interesting. It's a big part of the world of investing that a lot of people don't really talk about is the beginning, right? People are used to buying shares, in different companies, but they don't know how did they get there, and obviously that process is not as straightforward as you point out. I'm sure there's a lot of other things that go into it. But do you maybe want to, touch on got DNA, precious metals. Um, how do you get started? Like, how do you find these companies? Are you looking for them? Are they looking for you? Did this just cross your desk as a, hey, you want to be an investor in this? And you're like, oh, I think I can help more. What was the process?
Well, typically, what I would do is, as an investment banker, I would look and seek out these private companies that are wanting to go to the next level. As a private company, you can only get so far with the network that you have. Um, then at that point, if you want to grow and expand your business, you have to go to the market to get your money. So I would seek out these private companies looking to get to the next level. For instance, in a mining company that I was involved in, a mining company would have to set up shop, and before they even begin to mine, they have to have engineering reports. They have to set up, literally, they have to set up mines. They have to set up the infrastructure. And to do so is a mining company is a very good example, because a mining company or a biotech company, that's millions of dollars that the founders and investors have to spend before they even go to tap the public market. Once they tap the public market, that's when they can actually recoup some of that money, but more importantly, grow the company to that next level. So going public, in my opinion, is the next step in growing your business past your immediate network.
Yeah, well, it's always nice to spend someone else's money too, to a degree, right? They're already so invested, in many cases. So extremely interesting. We're getting somewhere spicy. So now you're starting to get at, okay, you look for these private companies that want to go public, maybe just for fun, and we'll see where it goes. What exactly are you looking for? And also, like, how do you find them? Yes, I know there's tons of mining companies, but, how do you come across this? Hey, you might be a perfect candidate to go public. I can help you. Let's do it.
That's a very fine line. When a lot of people build a business, it's their baby. And a lot of people have a hard time handing over their baby to the public. So when you're dealing with a private company that has to go public, there are so many moving parts. You have to deal with the founders. You have to deal with the investors. You have to deal with Wall Street. Wall Street always wants a big chunk of the deal. You also have to deal with raising the money. And last but not least, you have to do what's known as a shareholder exchange. You have to exchange private company shares for public company shares. And everybody has to be in agreement. So, like I said, there are so many moving parts. And a lot of times deals fall apart. A lot of companies try to get public and they make it to the finish line and they just run out of steam. Either they run out of money, or somebody doesn't sign off on the deal, or somebody gets a little squirrely and they want more of the deal. A lot of the time the investment bankers want control because they're putting up the major part of the financing. So there are just so many moving parts that there are so many people that need to be pleased, and getting to that point is it takes a lot of work. But like I also tell private companies that I deal with, a reverse merger is the quickest way to become public. We could go through the filing of the S1 and the filing of the 15C211 and go through the actual process of listing all your paperwork with the SEC and FINRA. However, you could also do a reverse merger today and be public tomorrow.
Yeah.
So like I always tell a lot of companies, it really depends on which road you want to go down. You can go down the traditional route of doing it yourself, retaining 100% ownership of your private company as a public company. But that's a very lengthy process. That could take 6 months to 2 years, depending on comments that FINRA might have and the SEC might have. Or you could go public and do a reverse merger, or as Canadians like to say, an RTO. And that is almost an overnight process. All that really entails is signing off on both parties and doing the share exchange. So, like, for instance, in my company, I want to grow my company in what I call growth through acquisitions. Meaning I like to approach private companies, bring them under my umbrella, and my company is a holding company, and as a part of the holding company, we all function as one company under the holding company.
Yeah. No, and we'll get to that in a second. I guess still curious, and let me know if there's just not much to say here, or if, hey, this is a great thing. So you look for private companies. How do you find these private companies? There's tons of them out there, so I'm just curious, like, how you go, hey, you're the one I want.
It's for me, it's all about prospecting. It's going back to the old school days of, smiling and dialing, getting on the phone, calling up Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones, I see you're looking for X amount of money. How can we get a deal done? I can bring you to the investment bankers. For instance, I'm talking to a group right now, and I'm not going to get into details, but if this goes through, it'll be a wonderful thing. These guys have worked really hard to get where they're at, and they're at a point now where they need to get to the next level. They've already raised a few $1,000,000, and now they need to raise about a lot more millions. So I actually had a conversation with them last week, and we'll be following up this week with more conversations. But really and truly, it's just about smiling and dialing, getting on the phone, talking to the principals.